allocate, we do not want to allocate any additional funds to a school that potentially may be on the list for closure or repurposing. Okay. Any questions on page 8?
No.
Thank you. All right. And then you go to page 9, the following page. It identifies if we have any litigation, meaning we have anyone that is a contractor, a bid, or anyone that is have any accusation against the way we're managing the funds, or if anyone is suing us because of a project. So this is confirming that we currently do not have any pending litigation, which is great. Then we're going to fast forward to page 10. This is where the auditor would identify if they felt that we had any internal control, meaning how we process our payments, how we allocate budgets, how we assign projects. This is where they will give their opinion on if we have any. And as noted on page 10, they do not address or identify any weaknesses in internal controls. Then we're going to go to page 12, where it talks about any financial findings. A financial finding would mean that we paid for expenditures that was not a part of the bond language, meaning we're paying for assistant superintendent's salary instead of just paying for construction. So page 12 identified that there was no findings reported. And page 13 just identifies that there was nothing in the previous year. So we have a good track record of spending our funds appropriately and adequately. Then you go to page 17, where they give you that's where they provide their conclusion on all the testing as far as the expenditures. Again, any material weaknesses, or if they feel like we paid for something in one year, but it really should have been put in the preceding or the subsequent financial year. This is basically saying, based on all the tests that they had, they felt that we were in compliant and there was no reason for them to have questions. And then we're going to fast forward to page 18, same thing about findings, but this is about how we spent the funds, how we processed the payment. Did we pay the full amount? Did we give anyone anything extra when the invoice was $10? Did we really send them $200? This is letting us know that they tested, there was no issue, no concerns. So nothing was reported. So that is the nuts and bolts of the audit report. So everything is interesting in audit. So it depends. Natasha, can you see my profile? No, I cannot, Mr. Jeffrey. The audit report in its entirety, you guys have it. I wanted to point out the highlights, what was important, which is to identify if there's any audit finding, to give you guys the assurance that we are doing our due diligence to make sure we're abiding by all the contract rules and laws and regulations. What our next plan would be is that we will present to you guys any future planned projects. I think that is going to come once we finish the school reorganization. But what I do want to do is give you guys an update on what has been done. So that way you'll know, like, we're on this committee. Hey, what are we talking about? And so essentially, our committee stays in place as long as there's $1 in a Measure K fund. As soon as the fund is 0, no pennies, then our obligation or our commitment ends. So with that, before I adjourn, I want to see if there's any requested topics on our next meeting that I can add to the agenda. Or any questions for the audit report, I should say.
Dr. Jorge Chaviran has questions, but I don't see him.
Okay. Is he raising his hand or? I see Ms. Roselle has a question. Go for it.
I'm just curious. Audit was done.
I could barely hear you. Could you speak up a little?
Let me join you on.
Am I saying your name right, Ms. Roselle? Am I saying it correctly? Ms. Melissa, were you able to allow Brian into the meeting?
I don't see anyone I see him in the chat, but I don't see him on the meeting.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's give Ms. Rozelle another second. I see she's logging on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I was just curious. I know that this one seems to be audited by a firm called Aid Bailey. How are they chosen?
So we actually, that's a great question. We go through the RFP process for both the district's fund and the bond fund. And so we solicit all auditors or accounting firms that's available to either have a specialty in bonds or just K-12 finance. We review them, and most of the time they're selected based off of cost or familiarity. Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied today, of the subject matter. So they have been our auditors for the last couple of years, and they actually do the district's general fund as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait, can you guys
And
hear
then
me
on the capital projects, sorry, on the capital projects, I see that there's 40 million that's allocated. Is there a chance that those money becomes reallocated for other projects?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. So as I was saying, this was the plan as of last year. And so we decided to pause on any current construction until we complete the school reorganization process.
Okay. And I'm just trying to understand what our role is. Our
Sure.
role is just basically to look at, you know, whether the money is spent, but we don't how they allocate the money is just something that we will know afterwards.
No, actually, it's the opposite. So the previous committee, they identified the schools. The bond went out for district-wide, and then they identified the projects. And then based on, in collaboration with the architects and the plan and the budget, they identified the tiers of how they were going to work on each project. That was presented to the original COC team. So here, our role is to identify, okay, when there's a project, we need to make sure the expenditures is being allocated to, or the expenditure plan is in compliance or in the language of the bond. So meaning, I'm not presenting to you to say, okay, we're going to buy 5 new buses. Well, if that wasn't part of the bond language, then this committee would say no, and then we would actually have a representative that would speak to the board saying that we are not in agreement with this. But we are just an advisory committee. We basically advise the board if we feel that anything was going on. So we don't say yes or no, but we do give an opinion.
Okay, thank you.
You're
given all
welcome.
that information then, and sorry for actually having these issues with my computer. I don't know what happened.
That's okay.
Anyways, I actually read the entire thing, and it keeps referencing the facilities master plan. Are we going to have access to that to know exactly what it is, that the projects that have been completed, and still, obviously, you listed the projects that quote unquote still need to be completed, but can we get a listing of all the projects? You know, taking a look at this balance sheet right here, it looks like we don't have enough money. It looks like some of these projects are either going to have to be cut in half or just completely wiped out of the actual budget itself. We're looking at $40 million that it's going to take, quote unquote, to finish the projects, with the acceptance, of course, of the track and field of Azusa High School, Gladstone. Which, have those been completed in its entirety, or is
Yes.
there still something that's left?
So what's left in our fund right now is approximately 35 million, and that's because the track and field was completed a little less than the 5.8 million that's here on the budget sheet from the audit report. So as of June 30th, there was 40 million left in the bond fund. And based on the projects that was remaining, this is how it was allocated from Azusa High School to Gladstone High School track and field, Center, Dalton, Lee, Paramount, and Slauson. So for each project, the architect submits to DSA, and they come up with the plan, and they identify, okay, based on cost of materials, this is how much this project will be.
Okay.
I guess my question.
That I understand, but the question I had was, it looks like we're short.
Yeah,
How
we
do you
only
see
have
we're short?
28.5 million in
Yeah.
cash.
Well, if you take a look at the balance sheet, you know, the portion of the balance sheet that was actually submitted, there's quote unquote 28 million in there only. You're saying it's going to cost us about somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 million to complete these projects. So are we cutting out some of these projects, or what's the intent? Are they actually going to go after another bond? You know, where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, so we actually have funds in our Prop 39. So what it is that we had projects that qualified to submit to the state for reimbursement. So as we completed projects in the previous years, we submitted those expenditures and had reimbursement. So now, based on the reimbursement and what's left in the actual bond fund, will cover the balance of the 40 million that would be due, or the 35 for the last remaining projects, if those projects come to fruition. Because right now we have paused on all construction until we complete the reorganization process.
And or reevaluation of the actual cost of these projects, given that everything's actually skyrocketed with the price.
Yes,
You
sir.
know,
Yes,
the
sir.
price to everything, right?
Yes, sir.
And so even if there is an upscale per se, of additional costs, then you're talking about this Prop 39 is going to cover the additional funding.
Yes, based off of a tier. So when I say, like, for instance, center modernization would include fencing, would include underground utilities, would include roofing, would include pavement. Based on the funding that's available, they will start in a tier. What is the first priority? Underground utilities, then it'll be pavement. And then if we don't get to the fencing, then that would be left off. But it wouldn't be that center just wouldn't be touched. It'll be based on the projects that's remaining for that site.
That's I can understand that a little bit more now, as opposed to just, as I hate to put it this way, it's a bunch of verbiage, and all I look at is numbers.
Okay. And you can help me understand what would be better to present to you, and that way I can meet your needs going forward.
Well, no, it's just the way that this report was actually presented. I mean, there's a bunch of fluff in there, and literally there's about 3 to 4 pages that actually have something worthwhile. And I get it; they have to do their job. It's a CPA,
Right. Yeah.
right? I get that part.
Yeah.
But to us, it's kind of like, okay, you just wasted literally, I don't even know how pages long this thing was, about 12 pages, 13 pages, and literally about 3 pages is about all I needed for information. I don't know how the other panelists feel.
I mean, well, I think that was my intent of just coming through and telling you the highlighted pages to go to the key information, but we present the audit report as is presented to us in its entirety. Miss
I
Diana,
guess
you have your hand raised. I'm sorry. Ms. Roselle, can I get Miss Diana's question? Her hand's up. I'm sorry.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. And I did want to say my first question was about suspending activity on the bond. So I'm really happy to hear that. The other thing is commenting on what Jorge said is to get a listing of all the projects that have already been completed, and just to get clarification on where we are at this moment and where we have been, since we have not been part of this process before. And I know this has probably been a repetitive request in past, but just to see that information would be really helpful, because I did read the whole thing as well. And so I just need a little bit more clarity.
That's no problem. I will fulfill that request to make sure the entire committee, that will be one of our presentations, to identify what we have done and what was left on the horizon.
Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
just to piggyback off of that, can we actually get a list of the contractors that actually were awarded some of these projects? I know you mentioned RFPs. I'm beyond familiar with procurement processes, and I actually just want to understand more about the procurement processes with regards to how does the Unified School District actually go after and vet, quote unquote, the contractors, and if we're actually giving preferences to any small businesses out there within the community. At the end of the day, we try to, quote unquote, level the playing field. But in my past experience, it just seems like if you actually have a contractor that's done a great job for you, we will continuously go back to him or her, right? Which is not a problem. However, in light of everything that's been ongoing with regard to the small business communities, as far as I'm concerned, it'd be nice if I knew who was actually getting these contracts, and do we actually have any influence with regards to how these contracts are going to be awarded in the future?
Yeah, so actually we do. We have a full influence, and we actually have an outside entity where all contractors that are interested in bidding for any of our projects, we put it in the newspaper. They have to submit through the outside entity who vets their insurance, who vets their tasks, who vets their abiding by the public works laws and regulation. Then from there, we receive all the bids, and then we have a ranking where we have a tally sheet based off experience with the district, cost of materials, how long they feel they're going to take take to do the job, how much retention, or how much projection for a change order. And then based on that, we make that decision, and then we present to the Board of Education saying, based on this criteria, this is who we're awarding that bid to. Once the board approves that we award that bid, we go back to our architects and say, here's the winning bid, and then the architect works with that contractor.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're so welcome. Ms. Roselle, I know you had a question. I'm sorry. Oh, you're okay now? Okay. Ms. Diana, is your hand still up, or you had another question?
Yes, it's up. I did have a question regarding the architect fees.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Actually, I was gonna ask that too.
Because it is quite high. It's $1 million right there. And what the fees were for?
So
I mean, I
we
know
pay-
it says architect, but it's specific.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we pay architect fees for several items, such as DSA submissions, drawing out plans, helping us become up to date in code for our fire codes or any other regulations. Anytime you have a, let's just say we wanted to just modernize a kitchen at one of our schools. Well, once you do a modernization, you're required to do the entire school to make sure you're now compliant with the current code. But as long as you don't touch the school, you don't have to come make sure you're in compliance. So once we want to do a modernization, we need an architect that's going to help us with those plans to make sure, one, what are the codes that we have to come up to meet, as well as submit the paperwork to DSA.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keeping along the same lines, so now that we're actually on that part of the expenditures, exactly what is a survey for site purchase? Or is the school district looking to buy something, or?
No,
that's
so they'll do
$4.5
a
million.
survey for, that would be like a survey for land, survey soil testing and water. But no, we are not looking to acquire anything.
Well, that's just interesting. $4.5 million.
Right.
That seems a little bit high. I mean,
Well, remember, this is all from the exception, that's not the right word, inception of the bond. I hope I'm using the right word. So it's not just that's what we spent in this 1 year. This is from when the bond originally passed to date. So I can get a breakdown for that amount if you would like, but that's from the day the bond passed till June 30th. So it's not just what we spent in 1 year.
It's all prevailing wage too, so.
Thank you. And this is actually Brian Allen, our Director of Maintenance Operation, who also leads most of our bond projects.
Hi, Brian.
actually, if you can give me a breakdown of all the expenditures, your statement of revenues, I would highly appreciate that. I actually want to take a look at that stuff. And granted, this is stuff that already took place back in June. When is the next quote unquote audit going to take place? Because these balance sheets are old.
So, okay, so we have to remember that the audit report, we close our books every June 30th. Then the auditor comes out around August and September to audit the book, and they provide a opinion by December. So we're always a year behind. And an audit report tells you from beginning to end your total amount. So am I understanding the request that you would like the total revenues broken down from the inception, from the date the bond passed, or what is the request?
Yes, ma'am.
From the date that the bond passed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would that suffice by giving you previous year audit reports, or what is it that you want for this request?
Just a breakdown, complete breakdown, since we actually
Line
passed the
item.
bond.
The lines.
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Ms. Diana.
Well, it's if you break it down by line item to reflect the expenditure and
Okay.
just a brief description.
Okay.
Because I too thought 4.5 million surveys
that's a
was
big
kind of
money.
high. But I do know that there was extensive work being done at center when they had that issue with the piping or what have you. So, I mean, I know all that stuff's expensive, but just to get a visual of where it went would be nice.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Joseph, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I agree with Diana and Jorge. It would help me better understand when I'm looking at the audited financial statements, and I'm very familiar with those, but just to get the backstory, it'll just help me when I'm reading through them.
That's not a problem at all.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so I have a list of all completed projects and where we are today, as well as a breakdown of revenue and expenditures.
Like the list of the contractors.
And I
from every bond project? I mean, that could be extensive. So can you be clear on what exactly we're asking?
Maybe major contractors, not the subcontractors, but just your primes, because every
Okay.
prime is going to actually have subcontractors. So whoever was
And-
awarded the major contracts would be nice.
And what would you constitute major, by dollar or?
No, I would say by project, but I don't know enough about to
think
know
by
exactly.
dollar.
Okay, there you go. I got Diana.
Okay, and your
looks
dollar
like-
threshold for considering it being a major project is?
What do you say, Jorge?
I say 500,000 and above. What do you say, Joseph?
I
You're a
agree.
numbers kind of guy.
$500,000, oh, okay. If that suits the committee, that's not major to me, but I'm listening. Is that what we're saying?
Million, a mil? A million, maybe?
$1 million? Okay. So contractors that's been awarded over $1 million.
I just think that over $1 million, we've already spent 11 million. So that list would be very short. I think the $500,000 would probably be better. Just so that we have the idea of the universe that we're setting foot into. The other thing that I would like, would be good to have is like a year-on-year comparison. So what was spent on year 1, year 2, just so that we know the progression. I'm basically saying that, I reviewed, this meeting says that I reviewed the expenditure of June on 2020, but I don't know how much was spent in 2020.
Okay.
That's actually a good point.
Okay. And remember, we're just reviewing the information. We're not voting, we're not approving, we're not agreeing. So, okay.
Yeah, but it's important, I think, for us to understand. So, for example, in 2020, in the year ended June 30, 2020, was of the 11 million, was 2 million spent, or was it 1 million? I have no idea.
I will get that breakdown for you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other requests? Yes, Mr. Joseph.
I know at the last meeting, we tabled the election of officers. I didn't know if that was going to come up again.
Yes. So what I'm committed to do is identify exactly the roles and expectation and send that out to everyone via email so you can make your selection, with hoping that when we have our next meeting, those that are interested, we can speak up and like, yes, I'm ready for that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments for discussion as far as the audit report? All right, hearing and seeing none. And with that, at 6:31 p.m., we will be adjourning our second meeting. You should have received your calendar invite for our first meeting of the new fiscal year, which my commitment is to have the request fulfilled, which is the list of all completed projects, a breakdown of revenue expenditures, contractors over 5 million, as well as a year-to-year breakdown. And then I'm providing the roles for the 3 officers that we have.
It's not 5 million.
500,000.
I mean, 500,000, 500 million.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Miss Diana, did you have another question? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
My question has to do with accessing the meeting. I received the meeting invite, but there was no Zoom link. Is there any way we could get a Zoom link in the meeting invite so that way we can access it easier? Or
Yes. So I will double check. We all should receive an email that says panelists from either Azusa at USD. And if you open that email, that's where the link is actually in. So you get a separate email with the link so that since you're a panelist to join the meeting.
I would agree with Diana. It's very confusing. I
yeah,
would prefer only one.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the request at this time.
The meeting invite should contain all the information. Having several emails is kind of confusing. It took me a little while because I saved the other one, and it's just really confusing. If you could just put it in one email.
Okay.
A lot
I will
of
see
us
what
are
our options are. I can
searching for it,
assure
it
you.
takes time.
Yeah, I can see what our options are, and I can also assure you that the link that we use is the same link for every meeting. So even if
Okay.
you save that,
Okay.
that's the same one, but I can see if we can add it to the calendar invite. So that way, when it's on your email, you can just click on it. So I'll see what our options are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other requests at this time? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn the meeting.
Can I have a
second it.
second? Thank you. Okay. Oh, who's gonna take it? Who's taking
Jorge,
it?
give it to
Joseph,
Jorge.
by all means, just
No.
give it to the gentleman.
All right, we're gonna give it to Mr. Joseph for the second. We're gonna do a roll call to adjourn. Ms. Myra? Ms. Rozelle, and am I saying your name right? I keep asking. I'm sorry. Am I saying it correct?
It's Rachel.
Rachel.
Yes.
Thank you. I got it now. Ms. Veronica
Yay.
and Ms. Diana,
Yes.
Mr. Jorge,
Ma'am.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, ayes have it. So we will see you all, I believe we're in August. All right, have a good night, everybody.
Thank
you,
Natasha.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And welcome, Miss Diana.
Thank you.
You're welcome.